Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel called PantherSchools, that is SFDC Panther 2.0. My name is Amit Singh, and in this video we are going to extend the functionality of our previous video that we have implemented. So in the previous video we have implemented a component where we have got an input box and there is a button as well along with that input box, and if the some customer provides the user provides the customer number and then click on chat with customer, what it does is it actually prints out the phone number of that customer, whatever the user wants it to chat with. Now we are going to extend from here itself. So before we go ahead, please do like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel, and also share with your friends or colleagues who can get help with this series as well as the other videos that we have within our YouTube channel. Now, to make this work, what we have to do is, first thing that we really need to do is we really need to get rid of this wire method that we wanted to have. So there are two things that we can do. Either you can comment it out or you can get rid of this. So I'm going to comment this out because I really don't want it to delete this code. And next thing that you have to do is you really have to take this method name, and within this chat handle chat method which is being invoked from your button, that is chat with customer, after the validation is done we really need to make this call of that method, and here we need to ask customer phone and the value of the phone number that we have for that customer. Okay, and then as we all know, this imperative apex really returns us the promise. We are going to return the promise, it's going to be result. Like then is the method catch is a method which really catches the error if there are any errors, and then there is a finally method which executes no matter if there is any error or not. So if there is a no error, that means there is a data, so we are going to assign whatever the messages we are getting into the list called message. Okay, whatever the result we are getting, and if there is any error, so we are going to assign that error into our property called error details, and finally we are just going to keep as it is for now. We're not going to do anything. This is what we have to do into the JavaScript side. Into our apex class side, that I have already done is get rid of this catchable equal to true, because we are going to make a imperative call, so we really don't need this catchable as a true. And into our component we have to do one more, we have to add one more condition, that is here on top of division, which says that we only need to display this piece of information into the UI when the when the variable called show messages equal to false. Okay, that is the condition we have to add, so that this message only displayed when there is no message list being displayed. And then on top we have also added a spinner. This is really again a very simple concept of adding a spinner using lightning spinner tag, and we are saying this should only get displayed if the variable called is spinner has a value of true. So we have defined this variable here on top is spinner. By default it is false. And we have also defined a variable called message text, where we are going to store whatever the input that the user is inputting. We will see later on. And then we have this variable show messages. We really need to make sure we are setting this show messages as true if the data is coming, so that our list of messages is being displayed, and we also need to make sure we are setting it as false if there is any error. I have already deployed the apex class. We will go ahead now deploy this JavaScript as well as the HTML, and then we will see what is happening. So our code is deployed. Let's do refresh this page. So make sure that you are making the changes that we are talking here, and then after making those changes, deploying the code to the org, provide the phone number and click on chat with customer, and you see here we are able to see that messages are coming up over here like this. But if you notice one thing, right, what we see here is there is this scroll bar is set to the top. It's not, it should be over here where user actually types something and hit enter, the message is being sent to the customer. But currently the scroll bar is set to the top itself. So for this, what we have to do is we are going to now utilize this finally. So what we will do is, into our section, this section we are going to add a class called message content. It could be any class, like maybe message, or maybe message area, or maybe let's say chat area. This is our class that we have. And then what we have to do is we have to say, let's quickly create a variable called let chat area equal to, we'll say this dot query selector, not this dot query selector, this dot template dot query selector. And what we want the component, we want a HTML attribute with the class name called chat area, and we'll say this dot chat area. If there is something in this variable, then what we will say, we'll say chat area dot scroll top. Okay, there is a property called scroll top, and where we wanted to, up to where we wanted to scroll, we will say chat area dot should be scroll height. So now what we did here is we said you need to scroll to the top, because what we are doing is we are scrolling to the top, up to which we scroll, we need to scroll up to where the height is. Okay, now it will take our, it will put our spinner, not spinner, it will put our this scroller to the bottom of our content as always. And we also need to do one thing. Once everything is valid, let's quickly say we are setting this variable, this dot is a spinner to true, so that spinner is being displayed. Okay, and finally after we are done with this, we'll say this dot, so we are setting this dot is a spinner as false in the finally method. Now let's deploy this. But you might not see this scroll bar. The reason this scroll bar is coming, because there is one small change that I have already. I'm going to really get rid of this first, so that I can show you how it's going to look like, and then we need to do that. But for now it's fine. Like I really forgot that we had that scrollable, but now that's fine. This is how basically your component is going to look like initially once you are able to get the messages. This is how you see. Now we have got a huge list of messages, and there is no such scroll bar. And now imagine, you can imagine, if we have multiple messages, there could be hundreds of messages, right? So it's going to be like too big. So we really wanted to have a scroll bar over here, so that user can scroll to the top or bottom whenever there is a need to find a particular message. So to do that, what we have to do is, in our section that we have to use a class called, and that class is SLDS scrollable. It is going to set the scrollable for us, and then we are going to have a style. We are going to add height as 350 px, or maybe you can have 400 px. Okay, that's what we are going to do for the style of our scrollable area. Now what will happen, now you will see that the scrollable will be there, the height is going to be 400, so after 400 it is going to show us the scroll bar. Now let's take this customer phone number and let's put it over here. Like we need to type the customer phone number and then hit this chat with customer button. You have seen that the spinner was also coming, and now our message is basically, our scroll bar is at the bottom. Right now, if we send any message, it's not really going to do anything because we have not implemented that. The next thing is that we have to do is, once a user types something and hit enter, it should send us a message to the customer. Now whenever we are trying to send a message to the customer, what will happen? Before, we basically need to know if a enter button has been clicked or some other button has been clicked. So to know if the enter button has been clicked or not, we are going to have a method called setup chat message. This is a method which we have created. Now here what we are doing is, we are trying to use the out of box standard add event listener method that is provided by JavaScript itself. And the event that we are trying to add here is key down. and then we are saying we're checking if the event.key, that means the keyboard key which we have pressed, it is enter or not. If it is enter, maybe do the processing over here, or maybe call another method that is going to do the processing for us. Okay, but if you see the line number 66, which says we are trying to find element with the class name chat input, so in our HTML file we need to come back to our input, which is actually being used for sending a message. We need to add a class called chat hyphen input. You can use whatever the class you want, maybe chat container or something else. You can use as per your name, as per your wish, and that is what you have to provide over here. Then we are using a if condition. We are saying if there is an input, that means we have found something. Then we are going to say chat input dot add event listener. So we are adding an event to this particular input itself. Okay. What we are saying, if there is a enter, if there is an enter keyword has been clicked, we are calling this method handle send message. We are going to create this method handle send message. Okay, and maybe we can have a console over here. So this is again we have done. Now from where we need to set up this chat, we are going to set up this from the finally method. After everything is done, after we are done with the scroll bar setting the scroll height, we need to call this method, so that once we have got the list of all the messages we have displayed into the UI, where the scroll bar is the bottom, at the bottom. Now we need to set up the chat message for the like set up the enter event handler, so that once the user clicks on enter, like hit enter, we are able to catch that event and then do the processing for sending the message. Now this handle message, we really have to first do the validation. First let's go ahead and do a console message over here, console.log, and we are going to say this dot message text. And in this handle change, what we are doing is, so this is our input, right? If I showcase where this is our input, if we type something, what we are doing is we are having an event handler there on change. This is on change, which says handle change is the JavaScript method. We are calling it over here handle change, and whatever the value user is typing, putting it into the variable called message text. And this variable we have already defined on the top. So if you don't have defined, you really have to define this variable, otherwise your code will not work. Okay, now we are just putting a console.log, and now let's deploy this code. Now the code is deployed. All we have to do is we have to refresh the page and see what happens. Are we able to like listen to that enter event for the input or not? So once you're done with the refresh, provide the customer number into the input and then hit this button chat with customer, and we are here. And maybe if we say hello and hit enter, you see we've got hello over here. Maybe there's something else, hello there, hit enter, you see that hello there is here, right? So this is a really, like we'll say, a good thing that we've got the enter event. Now we really need to call the method to send the message to the customer. Now if you remember, we have created a WhatsApp util class, and that util class has a send text message method, which is actually taking two parameter as input, like message content and to phone. And after the message is being sent, it's preparing the WhatsApp message and then returning it to us, right? So we have to take use of this method within our LWC, the class that we have. So what we did is we have created a method called send a text message within our LWC component. This is really a simple method. You really don't need to worry about it. So the method name is send text message, and then we have got this like method accepting two parameter. One is message content and one is to phone, right? And then in this WhatsApp message, what we are doing is line number 26, we are calling the method of WhatsApp utils, passing those two parameters, that is sending the message, creating a message record in Salesforce, and returning us back. And then later on, we are just making a query to the newly created message, getting all the content we really need. and then returning it back to the Lightning Web Component. So what we have to do is, within this handle send message, first thing that we have to do is we have to create a method called all valid. Sorry, not method. We really need to call the method that we have for validating the input, like handle validate. Okay, if everything is okay, like we'll say all valid. If everything is okay, then we are going to send the message. Now it takes two parameters, and before we really use this method, we really have to import this method on the top of our Apex class, not Apex class, into our JavaScript class. So how we import is, we really use import statement. We give the name, it could be anything, and we'll say from @Salesforce Apex, and the name of our class, that is WhatsApp LWC service, and the method is send text message. And now we have got this method implemented here on top of our JavaScript. We need to call this method imperatively. That takes two parameters, and out of two is, one is message content, and in our JavaScript we have got this message text variable containing the message that needs to be sent, and then there is a variable called toPhone, and we have got phone variable. Okay, and as usual it's going to return the promise. So I'm just going to do a copy paste from here, and we'll make the changes that we want. So finally we really don't need here anything in catch. That's fine. So if there is a success, what we are going to do is, now what it does is it sends a message to a person. Okay, it returns us the new message. Now we also need to display that message over here. We also need to add that message over here so that it is being displayed. So how we will do is, we'll say whatever the messages that we have currently, push this newly created record there, so that the HTML, the UI is getting re-rendered and we are able to see our message. Now let's deploy. And there is one more thing that we have to do is, if the input is valid, we will say this dot is a spinner equal to true, and finally we will say this dot is a spinner equal to false. Yeah, this is what we have to do, so that our spinner is also being displayed while the user clicks on, like, hit enters, and user must need to know that there is something happening behind the scene, and he or she can wait for the outcome to happen. Now as our code is deployed, let's go ahead. We really need to refresh this page, then provide the phone number into the input, hit the button, you got the spinner. And before you go ahead and test this, there is one really important thing that you need to take care is, because if you are sending this message, like if you are working on this series from a very long, after a very long time, because we have been in a break. So what you really have to do is, first you need to send the text message using the postman that we talked about, using the template, which really sends the hello world message. And then once you are able to send the message, you receive the message, then only you can communicate. This is a prerequisite for testing this functionality in the test environment. But if you ask me, is it going to happen every time for the production environment? No, answer is no. That really need not to happen. Now let's say here we are saying that hello there. We hit enter, the spinner is there. Now if you see, right, if you see, the hello there is there, but again let me show you. The hello there is there, but the scroll bar is still, now it's not at the bottom. We have to scroll down. The message is also being there. It is not disappearing, right? So there are two things that we need to do. First, we need to set up this scroll bar to the bottom, and then we also need to get rid of this message once the message is sent. So what we will do is, for setting up the scroll bar, this is the same thing, same code. You can just copy paste, put it here in the finally. Okay, and for setting up the message as a blank, so let's say here within the finally itself, we will say this dot message text equal to blank, and in our input we are going to bind this message. We are going to bind this variable message text with the input value. Okay, with the attribute value. This is what we need to do, and let's deploy this. And in the meantime it is deploying, these are the two attributes that you also need to provide. One is Required is must in order to make sure the validation is taking in place. And then if you wanted to display a custom error message when there is an error, the user is not providing some value, you can display this as well. You can use this attribute value, like message when value missing. If not, required is must, you really have to provide it. Now let's refresh this page, and this time we should be able to see that message is gone, and we will also see that scroll bar is also perfectly working fine. So currently scroll bar is here. Let's say hello. Now you see the hello has been sent, the message has been removed, and our scroll bar is at the bottom where we need it. Okay. Next thing, that if you see here in the previous component that we had as a part of demo, you see here we've got this chat with another customer. This is a button which we really need to have, and if you click on this, it really get back, and then we really have to provide the phone number for the customer which we wanted to chat with. So for this, what we will do is, in our HTML within the lightning, we are going to have a lightning button. Label, we will say chat with another customer. Same could be the title, and then variant, we could say brand. Okay. And we are going to use an attribute called slot, and we will say actions. So once we say slot is actions, our button is going to be aligned over here on the top right. And we definitely need to use a handle click event handler. Okay, on click event handler, which will say on click, and we will say handle another chat. This is the method which we have to do. Now what we are going to implement here, let's have a method. Now we are going to do few things. First thing is that we are going to set the message as a blank, message text as blank. We are also going to say this dot show messages as false, so that we can display this piece of information. Okay. And then we are also going to set this dot messages equal to undefined. There has to be no message now. These are the few things that we really have to do. Now let's go ahead and deploy the source to the org. Now our code is here. All we have to do is we have to retest this and see what happens. So you see here the chat with another customer is by default popping up. However, it should be hidden when we are in this format. We are going to hide that, but let's provide the phone number. We got this, and if you click here, the other thing are being populated. Everything is happening. One more thing, we are definitely going to hide this. One last thing that I would like to show here is, let's say if I send something message from this component, the message is being sent. Okay. And then maybe if I reply here from my message, I've just replied. Okay. If you see, the message is being added over here as the customer reply. But if you do the same for our own component, maybe currently the message is coming, but if I reply it again, maybe let's say I've just replied it again. So if you see here, the message is coming in this component, but for this component the message is not coming, right? We have to really refresh this page to see the message in our component. So this is again nothing, it's a sneak peek for the next video that we are going to cover, but let's hide this button for now. So to hide this button, we really need to take use of our attribute called if true. We really need to hide this button. We really need to show this button if the value for show messages is true. That means if you are displaying the list of message, then only we need to display this button. Otherwise, we really don't need to display the button. Now we are deploying the latest changes into our Salesforce org, and we are going to test it. Now provide the phone number again. You see now chat with another customer is coming, and now you see that message is also coming up over here. And if you say chat with another customer, that message, that button is gone. So this is what we really wanted to have. In the next video, we are going to talk about when a message is being sent to us, our webhook is handling all those things, how we can uh, handle that in our Lightning Web component and showcase in a near real time. So this is it for this video. I really appreciate you for being here till the last minute of the video, and please do like, share, subscribe, also share with your colleagues or friends, and anyone else who really wanted to learn Salesforce and other related stuff. We will meet into the next video. Thank you.